everyone? Welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting. And why is my camera more zoomed in today? Tonight we are another episode of the Indie Show. Tonight we are talking Saga Volumes 2 and maybe 3. We'll get into that as we go along. And I have my Saga crew back with me. First up, the other new reader to Saga, DS. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Good to see you. It's been a long time, and I already told you and the other guys, I'm just going to throw it out there for who's in the chat. I totally spaced and realized just an hour ago this was 2 and 3, so I am ready with 2. But we'll go ahead with 3, and it's cool. I mean, I'm not worried about the spoilers, so yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I've read the first 2 volumes, and it's good stuff, man.
All right. Well, you know, we'll talk about 2 for sure, and then we'll see where we go on Volume 3. One of our big Saga fans, Mr. Comic Books NYC. Kavi, what's going on, man?
Yo. Yeah, DS scared me with that a little bit here because I was going to start off right with, like, the end of Volume 3. But, hey, it's all good. I brought some comics to the party, some Volume 2 and 3 comics and slabs. So, yeah, it'll be fun.
There you go.
I love these 2 volumes of this book.
Yeah, and our last member of our Saga panel is Backseat Driver. What's going on, man?
Cheers, guys. How's it going? Full disclosure, similar to DS, I did not. Well, I've read the whole thing before, but I did not reread Volume 3 today. I ran out of time this week, just like I did more or less with God Country last week. It's just been hectic, but I think I remember it well enough to be able to fake it through.
There you go. So if we can fight through, Kavi and I will have to do most of the talking.
I'm totally cool with doing Volume 3 another time if you guys want.
That's true. We can also do that if we decide to. So, DS, we'll start with you. You only got through Volume 2, but this is your first time reading like me. What did you think of Volume 2?
Yeah, I thought, look, normally when I read stuff like this and the first part's good, and then I always lower my expectations because it's tough to keep a good story up. And I feel like the story is moving along at still a good pace. It's just as exciting. They've introduced a couple new things. I thought this one was better than 1 in the sort of sci-fi aspects. Honestly, there was a lot more interesting sci-fi aspects. And similar to number 1, I also thought it was gratuitously vulgar where it didn't need to be, which may be sounding, like I said before, odd coming from a guy that collects the most obscene covers in the golden age that I can find. So I feel it's ironic that stuff's a little off-putting to me, but I'm used to it. It's definitely an adult story. I like the sci-fi elements are really developed nice. I really like just some of the little touches even. They're really, really cool. So yeah. I dug.
Sorry, real quick on that note, I don't want to be a snitch, but Charlie, I don't know if your dad's going to want to be here for this.
Say that.
Yeah, because
not a kid.
One of the most over panels I've seen anywhere ever, and it's like that's probably not for kids for sure.
Yeah, there's not much in this volume that's for kids at all. Like, you can't even hardly show panels that are kid friendly in this volume.
I mean, said she was going to leave anyway. Smart kid.
I do like that cover to issue 7. That Marco cover.
Oh yeah.
Or is that a Marco cover? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am a big Paul Pope fan. If you saw our Gotham City Chronicles about Batman Year 100, I had nothing but positives to say about Paul Pope's art. And he did this variant right here, the Ghost variant for issue number 7, which I just adore. Love that cover.
Yeah.
Yo, Reggie. What's up?
Hey, Reggie, what's going on? Wow, StreamYard, I have 2 comments. StreamYard. So I may have to open the other one just so I can see it. But so,
have a good one, Charlie.
Later, Charlie.
Yeah, later, Charlie. So I completely lost my train of thought. What about you guys? Kavi, what's your general thoughts about Volume 2?
Just 2?
Well, we'll start with 2, and then we'll go into 3.
Okay, so I'll just start off by saying that I feel like volumes 1, 2, and 3 tell, breathe it to a full storyline for me, and then you can sort of take a breath. Whereas after volume 1, you don't. I mean, you're just really enticed to keep reading. You don't need to take a breath necessarily. And like, frankly, the ideal way in my mind to cover this story is volumes 1 through 3. And that's how the hardcover is laid out, which is nice. And there's a lot of cool bonus stuff in the hardcover if you're into that kind of stuff. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed volume 2 and volume 3. If I just have to kind of stick my feedback to volume 2.
Well, you can talk about both if you want.
Honestly, even a little bit of volume 3. But like by the end of these 3 volumes, you start to learn that Saga is really good at breaking your heart. Like it'll like just like Game of Thrones, sort of in many ways. Like you'll get attached to certain characters or certain plots, and then unexpectedly things will happen, and those characters are removed from the equation, or whatever. Or they'll even set you up for it. In the case of Marco's father. But then they'll pull the rug out under you even sooner because, because in his case, you're kind of set up like, okay, he's going to be around for a second, but he knows he's going to die, right? That's the plot point. Yeah. And then he ultimately like sacrifices himself, right? So it's just like there are gut-wrenching things to me in this story throughout, and I think you start realizing that in volume 2.
Yeah. Well, my heart was broken when I really liked the medic.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, that was
like a side, and
yeah, he seemed very
so dark.
Good attitude. He didn't give a shit. He was in the thick of things, and then he's gone. I'm like, oh man, I was hoping more from that little dude. But the father.
But overall, I will like back up what DS said, that like the pace remains like quick, and you just want to keep going, kind of thing, and it's every obviously it's a quick read the first time, but it's an even quicker read every time subsequently thereafter because you're more familiar with it. But it's still an enjoyable experience. Like I never found myself getting bored rereading Saga. Like I've reread it a bunch of times, and I never get bored doing it. And I won't talk about volume 3 yet, maybe a little bit later, but like I do also think that volume 3 has some of my favorite like character introductions, and that's why I have some of these books later on in the volume 3 run slabbed at 9.8 and stuff like that, because there's a lot of first appearances.
I'm guessing that's one of them.
A lot of first appearances in volume 3, I would say, of important characters that are sort of being talked about, by the main characters in volume 1 and 2, but then in volume 3 they appear, and it's like, okay, finally these characters are now in the mix and in the story. That's kind of why I was like hesitant to talk about volume 3 right away with not having read it, but it is what it is. There's a lot of cool character introductions, I would say, in volume 3. Like volume 3 probably introduces like 3 of my favorite characters for the entire run. So that's kind of my overall takeaway for those two volumes.
Well, the lag on StreamYard is terrible because it's just now having Charlie say goodbye. But I have to shout the chat real quick. Dave Maris has been hanging out with us. Simon R was in earlier, sharing life with 2 YouTubers. What's going on? And then Charlie, and that's about it. That's all I got for like mine.
Oh, weird! I see Matt the Boy at 7 in the chat. Stay tough.
Time wise, it's like literally like 7 minutes behind. There's Reggie probably just showed up on the StreamYard chat. Hey Reggie, I would agree. Like the one thing that you noted is I very much like volumes 1, 2, and 3 are a story.
It's a story, yeah.
You could completely like check out at this point, like at the end of volume 3 if you wanted to, and
if you wanted
feel like you got a story. Not that I would, but I mean, like you could check out after this because there's a very clear time jump on the last page of volume 3. So it's very much one story. I feel like 2 and 3 especially are one story. Like volume 1 kind of sets up, and then 2 and 3 are basically one.
Yeah,
story.
really, it's if the first 54 issues of Saga like were a play, that's the act one. It's act one, act two, act three, or whatever. And there's going to be a second play, eventually, or I hope, fingers crossed, Brian K. Vaughan.
Never get to it, yeah.
But yeah, but it has that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like if they made this into a show, this is season 1. These 3 volumes are season 1.
Sure.
Like for absolutely. So Bexy, what about you? What are your thoughts just generally about volumes 2 and 3? We haven't got those yet.
So volume 2 in particular to me is kind of used to just even explain who our main characters are. Like you go back in time and you see Marco as a child. You see how Marco and Alana meet. And you learn a little bit more about some characters that get introduced pretty quickly, and for one or more of them maybe for a short time. But and I've got to agree that it's like it's almost a George R.R. Martin vibe, except that it's going to be like you're expecting from the very beginning. A lot of these characters are going to die, or one character or another is going to die. But even then, when it comes, it still kind of hurts. And that medic was just so. Oh, that was brutal.
I mean, like they literally introduced the medic, and then 2 pages later, is it even 2 whole pages?
I think it's further down the same page.
No, like the medic runs up.
Is it another page?
Yeah, 2 pages, but. And it's like you don't know anything about this medic, and it's like that whole moment is just like, oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Like they invest you in that medic in 2 pages, and then you're mad when they kill him or her.
And let's see, and so then you also get introduced to, it's very end of volume 2, but. You get introduced to yet another new character that is very pivotal. Like he's been involved in this story from before issue 1, essentially.
Right.
And you start to see the different characters' paths kind of start to twine together, even as some of them get clipped a little bit short. But you kind of get a better sense of not just the stories of the characters, but also really what kind of people they are, at least at this point in the story. And that's actually another thing that I like. You don't necessarily see it this early on, but you see some serious character development from Brian K. Vaughan throughout issues 1 through 54. It's pretty intense.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so let's talk about. I assume the character you're talking about there is Quietus. Is the character that gets introduced at the end of volume.
Quietus is the place, right? It's sorry, Oswald, Dr. Oswald Height.
Doctor, what is his name again? Gosh dang it.
Heist.
And Goose. Okay, Goose.
Oh yes.
He doesn't get much time in volume 2, but just minor Goose. Spoiler alert, he becomes one of the most popular characters in the whole book, like later on. So Goose is like that little like small
little,
cute
like seal
creature that greets them on Quietus. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! No, I didn't even like. They just like you barely meet the seal.
Yeah. But he's like one of the most popular characters in the whole book. Like later on,
yeah.
Like, he becomes
really.
I'm trying to think of a similar character in some other story, but he's just like he's almost like unique, the Minions.
Totally unique character. Yeah.
He's almost like the Minions from Despicable Me. Like they're very significant, but they are in the background almost the entire time at the same time.
I was gonna say because they introduce him in volume 2, and then you don't see him in volume 3.
No, but he's still part of the story. Like
okay, that's interesting. That is unexpected. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's good to know because now that makes me more excited to read 3 because I thought he was cool and it was just like an introduction where he's just like there.
Right, but you won't get him in 3. So
You don't get him in volume 3, yeah. I just
Yeah,
leave
But
it
you'll,
at
but you'll get him in
like,
the story, like you will.
yeah.
Probably the other big first appearance. I think it's end of issue 7. She makes a cameo as Gwendolyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gwendolyn shows up in volume 2.
Right.
Yeah.
It's either issue 7
And
or
quite a
8.
bit of volume 2, really.
Yeah, it's
So.
a cameo appearance in issue 7. Then her first full issue is issue 8, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than a pissed off X with skills.
First cover.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trouble for
her cameo at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a Hulk 181. Yeah, but it's the whole page.
She gets the whole page and she says her name. To me, that's appearance.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like that of a
I'm not
woman
sure what
scorned.
CGC says on. They probably say first appearance of Gwendolyn that on number 7. It's my guess.
Let's see. I'm gonna see what Key Collector says while we're
Well,
going.
that's actually
here's the thing. Look, I have the variant of number 7, and they don't say first appearance of
Well,
Gwendolyn.
this is actually number 8. This page
That's number 8. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, Saga number 8, first appearance of Gwendolyn.
Yeah, this one it says first appearance of Fard. Fard, that crazy giant,
that dude.
That's a crazy,
weird, disgusting monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's not paid for work to show his image on the,
Yeah.
the
I
screen.
don't know about it.
does he continue to have a part in this story going forward, though? I don't feel
I don't
like
think so.
I don't remember. I don't think it's a
it doesn't
major
seem
one.
significant enough a character to have it listed on the label as first
Yeah, that
appearance.
is kind of odd. I would not
Yeah, that is kind of odd, but
So
yeah.
he showed
He
every
is,
first appearance.
yeah, he's not in any of the rest of the story through the rest of the 54 issues. He doesn't show up again.
But like on issue 12, for example, first appearance of Goose and Dr. Oswald Heiss. Those are definitely keys, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
I might have to get that one slabbed then,
It's a
if that's Goose.
It's a Goose. It's the Goose.
I don't really care
issue.
about Dr. Heist, but I love Goose.
I like Dr. Heist.
I like him, but I don't really care that much. I don't
Yeah.
care nearly as much as I care about Goose.
Yeah, he's so popular. Dude.
Okay.
He's like-
we
Honestly,
went down the road.
I think the fandom of this book, it's like Lion Cat. Lion Cat is at the top, and then Goose is like
Oh,
the
really?
number 2 for a lot of people. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
That's interesting, and we're spending all our time talking about volume 2 and 3 about a character that basically says his house is over there. that's all definition volume. So. Let's see. We got C. Wood is in the house. What's going on? Big mistake. What's going on, fellas? So, let's see. In volume 2, like the biggest thing in volume 2 is the grandparents come to visit. So we get to meet. Gosh dang it! I am terrible with these names.
Bar
Brian.
and
Bar
Bar,
and
it's like BARR, right?
So this is Bar right here on the cover of 11, and this is Marco's mom. I can't remember her name either.
I forget her name now too for some reason, but I should know it.
I am blanking on her name. Gosh
It's also
dang
from
it.
Glare.
I can't remember the names either, JP, so you're not alone.
Bet you someone in the Clara.
Clara.
That's it.
Oh yeah. I finally found the page where I knew it was listed, and I was like,
Well, it's interesting. I find myself forgetting her name more than a lot of other characters because it's like a normal sounding name.
Yeah.
Clara. Like it's not like, Jen or whatever, but like it's a little bit more normal than some of the other names. So for some reason I have a hard time remembering it. But
so, I mean, we get this interesting dynamic of where Marco comes from, because it's clear that his parents are believers in the war. Let's put it this way. Like, they are not, these are not, he hasn't got this whole pacifism or like fraternizing with the enemy. There's no, like, his parents raised him to be, basically a soldier. He was sent, like, he joined up because that was kind of what they do, it appears. Like, his father, like, works to make gear for the military. Like, they took him when he was little to try to, so he wouldn't forget about to locations of some battles. Like, they're believers in the fight against the landfall and the wings. And so when they show up and he's here's my wife. Yeah. It's interesting the reaction we get, and a lot of it has to do with like Clara is very like, what the hell are you doing? Whereas Bar is like, oh my gosh, this is my granddaughter. And part of it is because Bar knows his time is coming to an end.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that also kind of fits the stereotype of the mom of a son is going to be very much against any woman that he brings home. The father of a daughter is going to be very much against any man that she brings home, type of thing. But I think that he did a good job of kind of making it a little bit deeper than that as well.
And they give like for no longer than Bar is part of the story because he's only part of the story in volume 2. Like they give him a lot of really nice moments. They even give him a couple moments with his granddaughter. Like it's they do a really good job of showing that like whether or not he was always this way or not, but at this point in his life, he's come to a place where he's very much cares most only about his family and he's not really worried about any of the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's part of the story. He cast a couple cool spells too. So I mean, he's involved in a lot of stuff in the short period of time that he's there, and he ends up being a guy that you really like. He really has good principles and good character. And Alana, I said this in the first one. She was kind of a bitch, and she's very feisty, and she continues that. I mean, I know you say one wrong thing to her, and she goes off on you, and she went off on him. And it took him, the remainder of what he had left of his life to sort of win her over. But yeah, he seemed like a cool dude. I was sorry to see him go. I really, really liked him.
I think in many ways, though, she's similar to Clara, like to Marco's mom. To Marco's mom, so it's kind of no surprise that
they are
like no offense to Marco, but he like went after a similar kind of woman.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah,
some Oedipus Rex syndrome.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's especially clear in volume 3. There's a couple moments when they're at the author's house. Dr. Oswald, whatever his name is, Heist. When they're at his house, that you can clearly see that these two are like very similar in the way they go, and like their attitude and when they're playing the game, like in volume 3, and like the two of them, like the test of strength is pretty funny.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably that's when, like, for the first time, Alana starts to get even slightly some respect from Clara.
Yeah. Although the father Bar kind of grows on her, you know what I mean, and softens her. Like I think the some of those nice moments we were talking about for Bar involves him and Alana bonding over Hazel, him making like the clothes and everything, like all that, that whole exchange. And how she warms up to him is sort of like the beginning of her character opening up also, which happens more and more and more over time, whatever, but that's the beginning of it. Sure.
Well, and you can see like even how short his, like the impact he makes, like that it carry, like the impact he makes on Alana during that short period carries over because like, but Hazel, as she's telling the story, talks about that she still has part of that outfit,
like a piece of that outfit,
that he made for her as a baby, like that they have carried his story and how to his grandchild, like she knows like enough about him, which I think is a really cool kind of moment that they include.
Yeah, definitely.
Because sometimes that's all you like. For some of us, that's all you don't remember your grandparents, like. So they've carried that memory to her. They've given that memory to her, even if she didn't actually have it. So other thing in volume 2 is obviously the introduction of Gwendolyn. I feel like it's the other character that's introduced in volume 2.
The introduction of Gwendolyn and the relationship well, I don't know if it's a relationship at that point. My memory's kind of blurring a little bit, I think, but the
team up at that point.
Team up between her and the Will. Is sort of the other half or the other main part of this volume. right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the will, like from volume 1, is basically decided he's not really going to go after them anymore because he's more worried about getting revenge for the death of his girlfriend, the Stalk, in volume 1, and this little girl that like he met on the Pleasure Planet and trying to get her out of there. Like, so really he's focused on two completely different things. He's not worried about them anymore. He's off the case. And Gwendolyn basically comes and's like, no, you're going to get back on the case because we're going to get this guy. And it takes Will about, a couple of pages to realize that she's lying about this whole thing.
Yeah.
I think he caught on to her pretty quick because he pegged her pretty quick why she's so up on getting it. He knew she's got some personal love interest with the guy, and he pegged her pretty quick. Not as quick as the Lion Cat did, though.
No. Lion Cat in these two volumes has some really great moments. Like it's just
well, in that same scene, like when Lion Cat says that she's lying about her reasoning, she immediately turns to the Will and is like, "How have you not killed this animal yet?"
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, "Believe me, I've tried." It's not even I've thought about it; it's I've tried.
And I love how, like, as the conversation goes on, so there's the point where she's like, trust me, it's complicated. It's more complicated than that when she's talking about, because the Will says, boy breaks girl's heart. Now girl wants him to watch him suffer and die. And she's like, it's more complicated than that. And before Lion Cat can say anything, she's like, though not significantly.
She catches on the Lion Cat pretty quick too, so she knows that Lion Cat call her out if she don't make that little correction.
They have a great dynamic in this book.
Like, they do. Although I will say, like, I was a little disappointed in the Will in this volume because, like, they talk about how, and this kind of carries over into volume 3, but like they talk about that he's the best. Like, he's the best of these freelancers. Like when people keep calling, he's like, well, my best is on another. When they talk to the broker and everything, he's the best. And like when they take on those 3 guys to get the little girl, like she has to basically like save his butt. It's like,
right. Well, I think his character is like severely emotionally / mentally affected by the death of the Stalk, and so you're supposed to be kind of led to believe that like he's no longer like at the top of his game, which I bought. I bought it, I guess.
Not only that,
in my first read through, I was disappointed with how quickly the Stalk got killed, but after getting through volume 2, like the first time, like I didn't read it. I think actually volume 2 I did read in trade first. So, so after getting through volume 2, I was like, okay, I kind of get that because without it's another one of those things where it's just like Brian K. Vaughan pulls the rug out from underneath you on a character that you feel invested in after like 2 issues or less. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, cool. But it made sense to me from a storytelling perspective to do that so that the Will's character can kind of go through something, traumatic.
Yeah, it became clear that the Will was more important than the Stalk. Like obviously by the fact that he lasted through the first volume, but like, although we don't know, like, well, spoiler here for DS, we don't know if he lasts through the 3rd volume. Well,
it's all right. You know what? I'm behind on all this stuff. I just started watching Umbrella Academy like 2 days ago.
I haven't started watching the season.
I watched Avengers Endgame after it came out, where I could rent it on my cable box, and everybody had already seen it. So you don't worry about spoiling stuff for me. I never catch stuff at the outset. I mean, this thing's been 9 years, and I'm just now reading it. So kind of hard to spoil something that's been out for a decade, and I'm just now starting to learn it. It's like, you know what I mean? You can't really. It's not really.
Well, I guess. Well, technically, yeah.
It's like a statute of limitations on spoiler. I feel like.
Yeah, you gotta.
Well, I know, but we were reading this for like.
Well, we're all reading it together. It's supposed to be like a thing, But it's a book club. What are you gonna do?
There was one part in 2. I don't know if you guys caught it, but it's one of my favorite movies. Is The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Yeah. So.
He took
a scene in volume 2 directly from The Hunt for Red October, where they fire the missile at the ship.
Oh yeah, she like turns
what are
into
you
it.
doing? And then she turns directly into the path of it
Yeah.
before it can arm itself. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like stolen directly from Hunt for Red October. When
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Oh.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost word for word, and it's like, yeah, because I've watched that movie 100 times, and I was like, huh, he took that directly from Hunt for Red October.
I mean, this is a random obscure reference. Well, this is not an obscure reference. It's a major reference. I'm wearing a hat from the franchise right now, Star Wars. But in the Last Jedi movie, when Leia gets, the ship explodes and Princess Leia is out in space all of a sudden. That I had already read Saga up until
Yeah.
and like I was like, it's Lion Cat. It's
Yeah.
that scene with the will Lion Cat or whatever. So
Yeah.
I had that in my head during a Star Wars movie, which is a way bigger franchise than Saga. But yeah, so hey Fuchsia, what's going on?
Hey, Fuchsia, what's
Okay.
going on?
Hey, if you should.
So the other thing we talked about a little bit that we get in volume 2 is we do get to see like some more of the background of how these two like actually got together.
Yeah.
And although like we still don't get like it really jumps from him like basically her smacking him into the mouth like when the first time she meets him because he won't shut up, like she's like no talking, to her helping him escape. Like,
Well, no. Well, I think the trajectory is that when she first meets him, she's like disciplining him or whatever, but then she senses like a physical chemistry thing, like kind of like right off the bat, even like when he's like behind bars or whatever, like laser beams or whatever, however they do the prison cells. And then you're kind of like, you kind of have to make a little bit of a leap or assumption that they've been out, they've been out working on the freaking, mountain range or whatever the hell, that manual labor work that they're making these prisoners do, right? For weeks, months or whatever. And Alana is using that time to read this book, you know what I mean? And the book is what ultimately ends up connecting them on a deeper level than
he's been reading
just
this
physical
book
attraction.
to him, basically. Yeah,
but isn't the book? Didn't he give her the idea to read that book, like, and read it aloud to him while he was chained up? So I mean, he sort of was like a romantic, because I think he was encouraging her to read the book out loud to share it with him, and I think he already sort of knew how the book would touch her. And I don't know if that was his plan, because he seemed sort of surprised when she freed him. But I think he saw past the fact that she was part of his captors, and he liked her as a person, and that shone through in the reading of the book together. But he was still surprised when she finally, blasted the chain and set him free. I think that surprised him. I don't think that was his plan.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Probably why it worked.
No, I would agree with that. And it was clear though that like she'd been looking for anybody that would like discuss this book with her.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think the fact
it's kind of like us when we're reading a story that so there's a lot of almost intentional self-deprecation for writers in that Brian K. Vaughan built into this volume, into this particular volume, and even the third volume too, when they actually go visit with the writer. You know, he's like I see like the Oswald character to me is Brian K. Vaughan in my head, just because that just makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Based on having read a lot of his stuff, he's kind of making fun of himself in a lot of different ways here in this volume, which is cool to me. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well let's move into volume 3. So,
all right.
So, couple of we meet, like Kami talked about at the beginning. We meet several characters in this, including these two reporters. What are their names again? Gosh dang it.
Hobbs and Upshur, and
Upshur. That's and so that are basically have gotten wind of this romance, or the fact that these two people have like vanished from both sides, and that both sides are hunting them, and they actually go visit. We see Alana's stepmom, who used to be her classmates. And like we get an idea why Alana signed up, and it wasn't because she was a true believer in the conflict. from them, but ultimately through them, because basically the government went to shut up their story. We meet the brand,
Yeah.
which I found to be another freelancer who ultimately, at the end of this, full spoilers, turns out to be the Will's sister.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So well, here's issue 14, which has the first appearance of Even, which is Alana's stepmom. Right?
Okay.
So that's issue 14. And then issue 17 is the brand and Sweet Boy, another charming kind of animal character, a dog instead of a cat.
Yeah, she has a dog instead of a cat.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there's, I think the big takeaway with Volume 3 is that there's major cliffhangers for multiple characters potentially having bit the bullet.
Yeah.
And you're not sure, if you stop reading there, it's like one of those open-ended conclusions. Obviously, you probably want to continue if you have any affinity to those particular characters. After reading the first 2 volumes, you'll want to, or first 3 volumes, you'll want to continue. But there's multiple death cliffhangers, basically.
Yes, there are multiple death cliffhangers at the end of Volume 3. Yeah. Well, I feel like there's one death cliffhanger to a certain degree, and the other one is just like, I don't think he's died, but he might not ever be the same character.
Yeah, one's a little bit more open-ended than the other one.
Yeah. But we get a lot of Volume 3 also gives us a lot of the interaction between Gwendolyn and the Will. When they're stuck after the big showdown with the void creature, I don't remember what it's called, the thing where their ship gets damaged, and the Will does the time suck. There it is, and so they get stranded on this planet, and they're basically like, as they come to find out, they're hallucinating the whole time that they're there. But we also get to see kind of the development of a romance between those 2 characters. And I love the whole thing where this phantom ghost of his ex-girlfriend is egging him to kiss her. I love that whole scene.
That's a great scene.
He's having a conversation with Gwendolyn and this specter of his ex-girlfriend at the same time.
And every time he responds, it actually makes sense for both conversations. The writing is so good in those 3 pages or something, but it's amazing.
Yeah, it's so good, and I love how ultimately it ends up with him kissing her and her punching him, but then at the end it's next time you touch me without asking, I'll punch your goddamn heart out, and she stomps off, and then the ghost comes up and goes without
asking. That was great.
It's a really good scene. It's just so well written.
There's also, I think, one of my favorite line cat or moments. I'm trying to find the page. Bear with me, I guess. Not sure which part of the volume is. I'll just know the page.
Trying to think of which one you're thinking about.
There's actually, I don't think there's any dialogue on the page. Hold on. Keep talking though. It might take me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure which moment you're referring to, but
it's between Sophie and Lion Cat.
Oh, when she's yeah, and when she calls him Honest Cat, is that
Yeah, exactly.
So the little girl that they rescue, do they give her the name in the first volume or the third?
No, they give her the name in the 3rd volume.
Yeah, so he decides that we're going to call her Sophie, and gives her a name, which we find out the importance of that name at the end of the 3rd volume,
right?
Because it's the name of his sister, the brand, it's where that came from, and he gave her his sister's name, and there's some really good moments when she's sitting around. That's right at the beginning, I think.
Is it? I feel like it was later, but I don't know.
Like when she's talking about who she is or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong
It's
part of the book.
it's before like she gets delusional because of the food.
Oh, right. Yeah. And that happens in like the middle, right?
Yeah. I can't find it at the moment. I should be able to.
I'll find it eventually. We'll keep the discussion going, I guess.
Yeah. So, let's see. What else do we got like that happens here? So we get a lot of background on the author and the book, and there's a lot of that stuff. And Clara and the author end up bonding quite a bit. But really, like to me, this whole thing comes down to like the end of this volume is where like all the. I love how does Hazel describe it in her narration? Is like they've been there for a week and they all this stuff is going on. So yeah, this is the piece of work that goes on to brutally interrogate our host while my family is forced to cower and terrified in silence when the prince finally arrives. Like we finally get to the moment that's the end of volume 2, where he shows up at the thing. And then I love how she just describes that, and then she goes, and then stuff actually started. And then things.
Yeah, and then stuff got hairy after that. Yeah. All right, I found the page. It is. It was in what issue? Issue 13.
Okay, did you find it? Okay.
So that's what the first issue of.
Yeah, that would be the first issue of volume 3.
Yeah. Okay. So I found it and then I lost it. Oh, there it is. Okay, here it is.
So you can show it.
Yeah.
Found it. I lost it. I found it again.
Yeah. So that page. Well, basically, they're just kind of chilling together. She's like, "My name is Sophie. I'm 6.5 years old. I can stand on one leg for a real long time. My favorite color is blue-green. I want to be a doctor or a dancer when I'm grown up." And then she's like, makes this kind of sad face, and she's like, "I am all dirty on the inside because I did bad things with." And then Lion Cat goes lying, that she's not bad, and then she kind of hugs him. That's like one of the sweetest scenes, sweetest pages that I've ever seen in comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what she's been through, and
yeah.
And he yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty damn good.
But ultimately, Sophie ends up basically against her will, but or not on purpose, but turning on the will, which creates our kind of cliffhanger for him is like the planet, which he starts hallucinating, basically for full spoilers here, so the sweet little girl ends up attacking him, which leads Gwendolyn to basically rush to find Marco, hoping that he can heal him because she knows that Marco.
Yeah, now her reasons aren't selfish necessarily. she has feelings for the will, and she needs Marco's spell casting ability to save his life or whatever. So so her motivations change within 6 issues or something. Because they develop their own kind of relationship. So
yeah,
actually, I would argue that her motivations are essentially the same. However, they now have the target of her affections has changed. However, her motivations are still the person that she has feelings for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Although her motivation for tracking down Marco originally was more about being scorned, than versus
True.
love necessarily. But I get it.
I'll go with passion instead of love.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So
I mean, that it all kind of leads to a epic sort of everybody arriving on the same planet at the same time kind of scenario, which plays out in that last issue, which leads to more, I guess more death cliffhangers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to mention about the art, I saw a couple people just
let's talk about the art a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing about the art I really like, it's not real. It's sort of a stylistic thing, or I don't know how you would say it, but this is obviously a sci-fi story on other worlds, and the art incorporates a lot of very familiar, simple, like Earth-like objects that sort of keeps it tied to us, so it makes it familiar. But it's a nice contrast between all this weird, crazy creatures and organisms and life forms and spaceships and all this stuff. And then you have, like, I'm just going to show a couple panels. The way she's dressed, I mean, she's just got like jeans on and a shirt. That's, you see that walking downtown now. There's nothing like futuristic or otherworldly about it, and it's a cool touch. And then,
that was made by the father, right? That outfit.
Yeah.
And then this telephone, I mean, it's just a cool contrast, because that telephone, just, 1980s telephone on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, like, this gun, it's like a Winchester rifle.
Right.
So yeah, there's just some cool touches of, like,
that is cool. That's cool
crazy stuff, but then there's a lot of little elements that are very simple and Earth-like, and it has a nice contrast and a good style to it. And I really like that. And I also thought this was Zangief from Street Fighter.
Street Fighter. Oh yeah, dude. Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe he just grew his mustache a little more, but that looked like that reminded me of Zangief from Street Fighter for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, I like the little elements where it's like earthly, like, objects that we're familiar with in our everyday lives mixed in with this crazy otherworldly life forms and spaceships and everything. And then there's like a little green telephone that comes from like the 1980s or something. It's a cool contrast when they do stuff like that.
It's definitely cool. I like those kind of juxtaposition of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's another one, like where there's a TV and you can see the red, yellow, and white like cords going into the back of the TV.
Yeah.
For the time. Yeah.
I mean, you also have a futuristic spaceship that's a tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's great.
Yeah,
and they talk about like a great scene when like the informant calls from a payphone, and he's gassing up his ship. Like,
right.
Yeah.
It's just like, so yeah, the art. It's a really nice mix of familiar and different, and they do a really good job of pulling those things together. And,
by the way, I'm a sucker for some these behind the scenes kind of things in hardcovers, but there's a lot of cool, like, Fiona Staples talking through her whole process, like how she does a Saga cover, how she does Saga interiors and stuff like that, all in the back of the hardcover with some really, really, like, I read the whole thing. It's really, really cool stuff. So if you're into that kind of stuff behind the scenes, it's like from the artist's perspective, definitely check out the hardcover.
That's like a Thompson submachine gun right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's cool. Yeah, I like the juxtaposition and the mixing in of things. But then there's like these other crazy weapons and life forms and everything. So it's very interesting how it's all tied together. And it works really well.
Like the Will's Lance is a completely out of left field weapon that just like, Yeah, that one was unexpected for me, especially the way that that was the scene on the ledge, right? Or no, that was Gwendolyn. That was different.
The scene where they're getting the little girl.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Volume 3 was the scene on the ledge.
Yeah.
With Gwendolyn's thing. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I think he takes out 2 of the 3, but then he needs help with that third.
That was like a cool, like, Western style scene right there. I like that one.
Well, he takes out 1. Lion Cat takes out 1.
Yeah, Lion Cat
takes out 1. Yeah.
I love how Lion Cat even gets his psychology messed with, though. Like in Volume 3. Yeah.
I thought this was pretty graphic and cool. He's eating the face right down to the bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, Lion Cat needs like a spin-off or something.
Seriously.
A cartoon or something, please. Yeah. At least some merch. Like, I can't even find any like official like Lion Cat like merch. It's kind of sad.
They've got.
I don't know if I've ever seen anything other than like a Funko.
I think I've seen a T-shirt or
true.
something lying around, but they don't like. I'd like a hat personally. But.
No. Real quick, I want to shout out a few people before we wrap this up that have joined us. Biggie Shack is in the house. I think I mentioned Bake earlier. Rod, Costa Rican, Fuchsia's in here. Daymers is still hanging out. I want to thank you guys all for jumping in and hanging out with us as we talk about Saga. So we're coming up on our hour. You guys got anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I think we pretty much covered it. I mean,
yeah.
So, feeling obviously DS only got through volume 2, but I think he liked it enough that he's gonna at least at some point get to volume 3.
Well, we have to, because I'll tell you what, when we do the next one, it's going to be 4 and 5. I'm going to be 3. I need to catch up, because if I'm I'm not even going to join you guys. It'd be pointless. But yeah, so I'll need to buy 3, and then I'll buy 3, 4, and 5, and I'll just read them all through, because really it's one thing I don't like about comics when it happens is too much dialogue, too much word bubbles. I'm a visual art guy. I've always said I'm very shallow. I like our visual art more than the heavy reading, and I don't like comics loaded with word bubbles where I feel like I'm reading a novel. I don't need all that. I like to you can have panels that tell a story visually with no words, and there's a lot of that in here. And I really like it's just the words and the writing is minimal, and it's efficient, and it's succinct, and it's only what you need to know with a little bit of color added to it. And then the panels are fantastic, and they tell the story, and it's a perfect balance between words and art. And some comics go too far one way or the other, and this is so far in the first 2 volumes I've read, they've been a perfect mix of both, and it's a good quick read. It's very easy to follow, and sometimes comics also get too creative with panel layouts and word bubbles, and it's tough even for an experienced comic reader to follow what direction you're supposed to go on reading some of this stuff. And this is very easy to follow, and they're not getting crazy with the panel layouts, but the art is solid and the writing's solid.
It's really cool. Another bonus thing that they include in this is some scripts, some Brian K. Vaughan actual scripts. So you can actually see the direction that he provides to Fiona Staples, and it's not like micromanaging it. It's like just the right information that's needed.
Yeah, and the panel layouts, I mean, they're standard block rectangle panel layouts, almost 99% of it. And if you're going to start doing crazy panel layouts, you need to have Mike Mignola, level of doing it, where it's just otherwise it gets tough to follow. But these are just all standard rectangle panels. It's easy to follow, but the panels differ in size, and a lot of times panels have no words and they tell the story. And it's just it's an easy read, a fun read, and it's visually very engaging, and the story's good. So I think it's a very well done piece of literature and art. So I like it so far. I'm looking forward to reading more.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Okay, yeah, I would say through 3 volumes, like I said, the first 3 volumes are clearly to me one. Like I said, it'd be season 1, the first act.
It's like one movie or one season.
It would be it's one story. There's one overarching story as these 3 volumes. I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to think of the best way to say, I just think it's just very well told. It's very well told. It's not my favorite story of all time, but I'm enjoying basically every aspect of it. So definitely looking forward to reading more. When the time comes and we get there.
like even if you compare it to his own work, Why the Last Man, for example, is far more, I think, detailed and dialogue heavy in comparison, but still not extremely. Paper Girls is even less dialogue than this. You know what I mean?
Paper Girls, I read the entire.
You can read Paper Girls in a day. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but this falls somewhere in the middle of his stuff as far as level, detailed dialogue and things like that. So it's right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah, Paper Girls was good, and Paper Girls had virtually no dialogue, I felt like, and you would flip through 3-4 pages, and it's just
a lot more just art. Chang has a heavy influence over that final product.
And I think Paper Girls maybe could have even used a little more dialogue, because it was more sort of complex story to follow along because of all the time travel jumping.
Yeah, because they're going to have to write a lot of dialogue that wasn't in the comic book to make that TV show.
Yeah.
So yeah. But.
So Baxi, what about you? What are your final thoughts on like the first 3 volumes?
I feel like so I remember however long ago it was when we did volume 1. Yeah, I think you guys were talking about it was just a little bit too, like just a little too slow to really kind of top the list for you, if I remember correctly. And I think that volumes 2 and 3 kind of pick up a little bit more. But you definitely start to see just so much more of the universe that Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples are building with it. And personally, I think that volumes 2 and 3 are a little bit better than volume 1. I think that it's important to get to and through volumes 2 and 3 in order to really get enough to want to continue through the rest of it. And for some people, that might be a little bit too long to invest into a story before you can really decide on it. But I think it's worth it. And even though I have already read volume 3, the fact that I did not get through it today, I will probably try and get through it this weekend, even though I've got like 20 books that I need to catch up on from the last month.
Carol.
So, Mr. G.
I have no excuse because all my other comic books are in plastic and they're unreadable. So I literally have time to read.
I would agree with that. I would say like after volume 1, I was intrigued, but like I also, if we weren't doing the show, I could have probably walked away. Like volume 2, even after volume 2, I would say it was like, all right. And I think it really, for me, it took all the way to the end of this first story arc to be like, okay, yeah, I want to know, I want to keep going.
Yeah, like honestly, I recommend reading this book in the hardcovers just because it's really 18 issue story arcs. You know what I mean? Which is a unique thing. Not many titles are telling 18 issue like complete, story arcs or whatever. What you have most trade paperback. I mean, the volumes aren't 18. The individual trade paperback volume are not 18 issues, but it's 1 to 18, 19 to 36, 37 to 54 are clearly 3 separate acts. Having read it, the whole every issue that's come out multiple times already. Like that is how I ideally break up the story and how I would want to read it moving forward. Like I almost wouldn't want to do a 4 or 5 episode. I'd rather do a 4 or 5, 6 episode.
So you think, so should we do 4, 5, 6?
Great. Now I got to read 4 volumes.
Right. Yeah, but it would make more sense.
Time, but yeah.
I'm just saying it would make more sense to talk about it that way.
Yeah, I'll do it. I mean, usually what I've been doing since our videos are spaced out. I mean, we've only done 2, but there's been at least a month between them. I have plenty of time that next time I'm away from the house, basically, and I'm hitting a new comic shop. It seems like every comic shop I go to has these trades. So I'll just buy all 3, 4, 5, and 6 next time I'm at one of these comic shops, and I'll just pick them all up, and then I can just read them. So
I think I only ordered 4 and 5, so I'll have to grab 6. But yeah, we can definitely do 4, 5.
I'm just gonna whip out the second hardcover.
There you go.
Well, yeah, I don't want to invest in the hardcovers because I don't have the space, and I probably will not keep these. I'll probably read them and then pass them on to somebody else who hasn't read it or I think will enjoy it. It's not something I plan on keeping forever, so I'm not spending a lot of money on them. I'm just trying to buy the paper trades.
No.
I have all the trades also because that's how I originally was collecting it or whatever. So then I wanted the large paper,
the hardcovers,
the art, the art on bigger paper, and then also the behind the scenes stuff, particularly the Fiona Staples stuff, is what kind of got me for the hardcovers. But yeah.
Right. Well,
always enjoy reading this book again. So
we'll wrap this up here. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Unruly Simeon dropped in here a little bit late, but appreciate you dropping by. Unruly, Mr. Garrell dropped in. Thank you. I want to thank Diaz Kavi, backseat driver, for all hanging out with me and talking Saga Volumes 2 and a little bit of Volume 3. And we will catch everybody next time.
Peace.